Nobody wrote it down. That is the part people forget when they talk about holiday cooking in America. Your mother did not need a recipe card because the recipe lived in her hands, in her sense of smell, in the way she knew a dish was ready just by the sound it made on the stove. She never measured anything twice, and she certainly never wrote it down for you, because in her mind, there was always more time to teach you later. And then one day, there wasn't. Today we are going through 10 holiday dishes that mothers across America made every single year, dishes that define Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter for entire families, and dishes that, for so many of us, disappeared the moment we needed them the most. If any of these 10 sound familiar, we want to hear about it because somewhere out there, someone else spent years trying to recreate exactly what you are about to hear. Number 1. The stuffing that was never the same twice. Every mother had her own stuffing, and no two were alike, even in the same town, even in the same family. Some used cornbread, some used white bread left out to go stale for 3 days. Some added sausage, some added oysters. Some swore that celery seed made all the difference and refused to explain why. The stuffing was rarely measured. It was made by feel, a handful of this, a splash of that, adjusted based on how the bread felt in her hands that particular year. Daughters who tried to recreate it later would call their mothers on the phone, asking for exact amounts, only to be told, "You will know when it looks right." Most of the time, they never quite did. Number 2. Green bean casserole made completely from scratch. Long before the can of cream of mushroom soup became the shortcut everyone uses today, many mothers made their green bean casserole entirely from scratch. A homemade white sauce, fresh mushrooms sautéed in butter, and onions fried by hand instead of poured from a container. It took an entire extra hour compared to the modern version, and most of the daughters who grew up eating it assumed for years that the version from the can tasted exactly the same. It never did. And by the time most of them realized what they were missing, there was nobody left to ask exactly how much butter, exactly how long to fry the onions, exactly what made her version taste like Thanksgiving and every other version taste like something else. Number 3. A pie crust made with lard, by hand, with no written measurements. Before butter took over every kitchen in America, many mothers and grandmothers made their pie crust with lard, worked into the flour with nothing but their fingertips. Cold water added a spoonful at a time until the dough felt right under their hands. There was no recipe card for this. There was only feel, temperature, and years of practice that could not be transferred in a single afternoon. Daughters who tried to learn would stand beside her in the kitchen, watching closely, convinced they had it memorized, only to realize years later that watching and doing were two very different things, and that the exact texture she was feeling for was something words alone could never quite explain. Number 4. A sweet potato casserole with a topping nobody could replicate. Some mothers made the classic marshmallow topping. Others made a pecan streusel, brown sugar and butter worked into a crumble by hand, never measured, never written anywhere. The sweet potatoes themselves were often boiled, then mashed with a fork instead of a mixer, because she believed the texture came out better that way, a little rougher, a little more honest. Every holiday, the dish arrived at the table exactly the same, and every family assumed it always would. Nobody thought to ask her to write it down because nobody imagined a holiday table without her standing behind it. Number 5. A ham glaze built from whatever was in the pantry that year. The glaze changed slightly every single year depending on what she had on hand. Some years it was brown sugar and pineapple juice. Other years it was honey and mustard or cloves pressed into the fat in a pattern she never explained. She would stand at the stove, tasting as she went, adding a little more of this, a little less of that, until it tasted right to her, and only her. Family members who tried to guess the recipe after the fact would come close, but never quite land on it, because the truth was, even she did not always make it exactly the same way twice. It depended on her mood, the ham, the season, and instincts that lived only in her. Number 6. A cranberry sauce that never came from a can. While most of America eventually settled into the ritual of the canned cranberry sauce, sliced into rings on a plate, many mothers refused to serve anything but homemade, made from fresh cranberries, orange zest, and sometimes a splash of something stronger stirred in once the children had gone to bed. The exact ratio of sugar to fruit was something she adjusted by taste, tasting a spoonful and deciding, without ever writing it down, whether it needed more or whether it was finally right. When she was gone, the family often turned to the can, not because they preferred it, but because nobody could remember exactly how she made the sauce taste like something worth fighting over at the table. Number 7. Deviled eggs with a filling. Only she seemed to get right. Every mother had her own version, and every version tasted slightly different, depending on how much mustard she used, whether she added sweet relish or dill, whether she used a dash of paprika or a full spoonful. Deviled eggs seemed simple on the surface, but the filling was often the one dish daughters swore they could recreate exactly, only to bring their own version to the family table years later and hear someone say quietly, "It's good, but it's not quite hers." That small difference, the one nobody could name, was often the hardest thing to let go of. Number 8. A gravy made entirely by instinct. Gravy was never written down in most families because gravy could not be written down. It depended on the drippings that particular year, how much flour the pan needed, how long she let it cook before adding the broth, and how she knew, simply by watching the color change, exactly when it was ready. Daughters who stood beside her in the kitchen, notepad in hand, often gave up trying to capture it in words because there were no words for what she was doing. She was reading the pan the way some people read a room, and that particular skill rarely made it onto paper before it was too late to ask. Number 9. A holiday cake made without a single measuring cup. Some mothers baked their holiday cake using only what she called handfuls and pinches, ingredients estimated by years of repetition rather than any written formula. The cake came out the same every year. Dense in some families, light and delicate in others, but always, somehow, exactly right. When daughters tried to recreate it using measuring cups and careful math, the cake often came out close, technically correct, and yet somehow missing whatever it was that made the original feel like home. Nobody could quite explain what was lost in translation, only that something was. Number 10. A dish that existed only in her kitchen and nowhere else. Nearly every family we spoke with named one dish that was entirely her own creation, something she invented, adjusted, and perfected over decades, something that never appeared in any cookbook because it did not need to. It was simply hers, a casserole, a side dish, a dessert that had no official name beyond her own, passed down only through memory and taste, and never quite recreated the same way twice by anyone who came after her. 10 dishes, 10 mothers who never imagined they needed to write anything down, because in their minds, the kitchen would always be theirs and there would always be more time. If any of these sound familiar, if you have spent years trying to get one of these dishes exactly right and never quite managing it, you are not alone. Tell us which one in the comments, the dish you would give almost anything to taste one more time, exactly the way she made it. And if this video brought back a memory you had not thought about in a while, stay with us, because we have more forgotten American traditions waiting for you right after this.